This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. This is Jay Scott, your host for the next hour or so. Hope everybody's staying healthy, staying safe. Looks like we're going to be opening up here, at least in Chicago. I don't know what everybody else is doing in the rest of the country. I know some places have already began, reintegrating and reopening the states, and depending on where you're at, there's just different types of regulation and different types of stipulations that you've got to adhere by. I know I was out at the grocery store yesterday with my mask and gloves on, so I think that's probably going to be what the normal is, at least moving forward in the near future. But the long-term future is we'll kind of have to wait and see because no one really knows and no one really has ever experienced this before. So good luck to everybody as we reopen, and stay healthy, stay safe. And hopefully we'll get back on track here with some live music and, some new music sooner rather than later. Speaking of new music, I'd like to welcome back a previous guest from the band The Cold Stairs, Mr. Chris Tapp. How you doing today, Chris? How's it going?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. Your original episode that released, I think, back in the fall, got a great reception. People really dug it. People really dug your story, which was just very compelling and just overcoming adversity and being where you're at right now. People really enjoyed it and got some really great feedback as a result of it.
Great.
So you've got some new stuff coming out. And, I've been following you guys on Facebook. You guys do need a Twitter account because everybody keeps asking me, when are they going to get a Twitter account? So I've been following you guys on Facebook, and you guys were going to start doing some new music released every month, and then a new EP first was going to come out, and now you guys are going to be releasing a couple of tracks like the first of every month. What's going on with that?
Well, originally the plan was going into this year in December for us to do 3 records this year, and that it sounds like a lot, but I write a lot. We don't have much of an issue. We both have studios in our home. We had been doing kind of demos between my house and Brian's house. And the goal of that was to get 3 out, and then we were going to tour behind it. We had Joe Bonamassa' tour in Europe in August, and then we were scheduled to play Rock USA, which as of right now hasn't canceled. That's July in Wisconsin, and I just can't. It's one of the bigger music festivals in the country. I can't imagine that it will go on, but as of now it hasn't canceled. But we were also scheduled to do Louder Than Life in Louisville and Aftershock in Sacramento, California. Both of those with Metallica headlining. So with we knew we had these festivals. We knew that we had a lot of big stuff coming up. So the plan was to do the 3 records, and we'd have a lot to tour around. Just have a lot going on this year. But when that all went south, when we left Memphis, we recorded drums and guitar in Memphis, and we were planning on going back in 2 weeks to finish. And that's when everything locked down. So we had 11 songs in Memphis that would have been the first album of the year, which was scheduled to come out in May. And we didn't. This probably was a way for us to finish that without going to Memphis. But the whole reason for going to Memphis is that studio has some amazing reverb chambers and stuff there that we wanted to use. So everything got put on hold, and I think, well, just be honest with you, about the first month, I didn't know what to do. I sat around the house and we're trying to kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. And my gripe most of the time is, hey, man, I wish I had some time alone to make some music, record some music. And then I had all this time, but I was just kind of in the funk. And the thing with me is when I'm in the right mindset, I can write 10 songs in 2 days. If I'm not in the right mindset, I can't write my name, So spend a little bit of time just trying to refigure things. And then finally, it just hit. I kind of got over it, and I wrote 5 songs in a day and a half. I tracked all the guitars and the vocals in a day and sent it from my studio to Brian's studio. We hadn't even seen each other at this point. He tracked drums on it and sent it back to me. So, and then we sent it to a friend of ours in Memphis to mix. So we did the EP in like 2 days and waited for it to be mixed. But the thought was, I wanted to do something that would get us some attention this year. That I thought the 3 records thing would be something that people could look back at the year and go, hey man, these guys put out 3 records of really good material, not without filler and whatever else. But now, without being able to tour and stuff, we kind of reconfigured. And I thought, the thing, without getting to see our fans and then telling them that they had to have to wait until August or October for some of these records, maybe it's a good thing for us every 2 weeks to just start putting out a new song and just plan on it for a year. We had enough material to do that. So that's where we're at. So our plan is to, on one Friday, have a new Cold Stare song release, single to iTunes and Spotify and stuff. And then the following weekend, we'll do a live performance. It's stream online until we get out playing again. But I think listening to some podcasts and stuff of kind of where albums are at anyway, but maybe that's a better way for us to engage with our fans going forward, is continually putting out new stuff. I still like the album format. So as 10 singles come out that would have filled an album, then that album will be filled on Spotify. And if you want to listen to it in album form, it'll be on there. But just trying to kind of reconfigure things and do something that we thought the fans would want, and also try to do something that somebody else is not already doing.
When you think about 2020, ending 2019, going into 2020, and looking forward to this year, you mentioned a lot of things that were happening, and a lot of things now have had to be paused. How does that make you feel? Like where? I mean, different people I've asked a similar question to have mentioned, well, we're all in this together. It's not like we're on this alone. But there was a lot of momentum for a lot of bands out there leaving 2019 into 2020, and it's all stopped. And, obviously at some point we're all going to come back out of our caves and our homes and try to get back to what is now the new normal. But what did that, was it frustration? What kind of emotion did you guys have, go through when all this was happening?
Well, in December, looking forward at this year, I was kind of feeling like, man, we're finally there. We're finally at a point where, okay, we're playing the 3 biggest rock festivals. We're getting back over to Europe. Joe Bonamassa had said those kind things about us on Instagram and was making an effort to help us. And really all the pieces were lining up. And so when this happened, I told somebody the other day, I think if you had told me in December, if you just said, hey man, none of the stuff is going to be fulfilled because of a virus that comes out of China from people eating bats, or, something like that, I just wouldn't have. I mean, you might as well have said there's aliens going to come, and I probably would have believed that equally as well. So I was just kind of stunned. I guess is the the right word. And it probably took me a little bit to digest it, but I have in my career and with doing the cold stairs thing, and really just in life in general, I think that anytime you kind of look at things and you go, okay, this is how this is going to go. This is how the next year is going to go. This is how my marriage is going to go. This is how my kids are going to be when they get older. Anytime you do those things, I think you set yourself up to almost every time it's going to change. If that's one thing I've learned about life, is that it's always never going to turn out the way you think it is. And I think once you get to a point where you see that and you go, okay, I know everything's fluid. And then with me, I just think everything happens for a reason. So I just finally, after I got my head around it, I said, okay, so this is where we're at now. How do I capitalize on this? How do I keep going with this? Because it's no different than being in a war or being in a race. You look over and you see adversities come, you see people fall around you, and you can either, doom and gloom it, fall with them, or you can say, okay, then there's a change in the road, there's a change in the weather, or whatever else, and how do I capitalize on that? And with us, I think it was, okay, people can't get out. We know we got a live stream. Everybody's doing that. That's the thing. What else can we do? Well, what can we give our fans that would put a smile on their face? If they get a free song every other Friday, and that helps us connect with them more, then that's it. And then just looking at other ways, so other things. So now we're capitalizing on some things, but we don't have the overhead that we would have with the touring. Obviously, we don't have the income coming in as well. So how do we recoup that? How do we, get around those things? And we're still kind of figuring those things out. But, I think with everybody, I felt horrible. I felt scared. We as humans, we all have the same emotions when something like this happens. One thing with me is I was really, really close with my grandfather and my great aunt. My great aunt died at 103, and really was my best friend for a while. And I would go and have 3 or 4 hour conversations with her in her last 10 years of life, weekly. And I really got that firsthand knowledge of what the Great Depression was like, what it was like. She was a mail carrier. She worked at the post office during World War II. What it was like to hear her tell the stories about the letters and everything else. So I know it's scary right now, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on, but I don't believe the hype when people say it's worse than the Great Depression, this and that, because I'm also a student of history, and I've studied those things, and not that it's not bad, and not that people haven't lost things, but I'm just not going to get. It would take a lot to really get me scared, and I don't know that I don't know. I probably look at things a little bit differently than most people, but I'm pretty optimistic in general.
I know you've dealt with some, adversity prior to 2019. We talked about it in the last episode, whether it was the album that, was held hostage, with the music, or it was with being sick. I imagine when you deal with something like that, I know I've dealt with some adversity too in life. I imagine that prepares you for things like this, or helps you with the mindset of there's no other option but to get through this somehow, some way. And I know I draw on that, whether it's from a divorce, whether it's from, being, having dealt with a sickness before. How are you, do you draw from those same things as well?
I think it makes you, anybody that's kind of been through some rough stuff at another point when more bad things come or more adversity comes or more challenges come, you can either do two things. You can either look at it and you can say, damn, here's another roadblock. I keep getting these roadblocks in my life. And I can look at somebody else's life and look at the smooth sailing that they have. And now here's something else that's kept me from doing, figuring out what I needed to do or accomplishing things that I wanted to do. Or you can look at it as, hey, A, B, and C didn't knock me out, and D is not going to knock me out either. Bring it on. And I'm kind of in that mindset in general. I don't think that it does any good to sit around and have a pity party about it. And I'm not much for excuses. There are points in times when any human has to look at a situation, has to look at what's good for them and their family, and they have to make a decision on, moving forward or not moving forward. And I respect everybody's personal right to do whatever, make whatever decisions they need to make. Personally, I don't think that you're going to be, if you're doing something and it's going to be positive for you and you're going to have a great reward, I just don't think you're going to have no adversity. My grandmother used to say, anytime something's going good for you, that's when the devil's paying attention. And I'm not for sure, it doesn't hold some ground as far as just the way that karma in the world works in general. There's a balance of good and evil or negative and positive, however, you want to look at it, and you're not going to have one without the other. And the quicker that you learn to deal with adversity, I think is much more, will give you the outcomes that you want much more than how you deal with positive. It's easy to win. It's easy to feel good when you win. It's not so easy when things aren't going your way, but it's a long game. It's not a short game. And, the other thing that I learned early on was instead of saying why me, you say why not me. Whatever we're going through, I've never seen the battlefield in Afghanistan or Iraq, or Vietnam. Even whenever the things that I've gone through health wise, most of those were later on in life. I'm not a 7-year-old that's passed away from cancer. I've always have to look at the positive things and, just keep fighting, man.
You mentioned your health just now, and then the previous conversation we had in the fall. With all this going on, with the pandemic really affecting people with pre-existing conditions, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that, hey, I'm going to be playing shows at some point? What do I need to do to take precaution? What do I need to do to protect yourself?
Well, that's scary. I just have to trust that everything will be all right and be as cautious and smart about things as I can. And, just take it serious. We're all going to go sooner or later from something. I don't want to check out any quicker than I absolutely have to. So I have to be careful. I think with all this happening, I have started to think, I probably should watch what I eat more. I probably should exercise more. I should probably take care of some things. And I think anybody looking at the situation, you probably, this is a heck of a time to make sure you're taking care of yourself. But I mean, I hear some people say, well, it's not that bad. It's just a little bit worse than the flu or whatever else. But, John Prine's dead, and he wouldn't have been at this point if he hadn't got COVID. And, there's a lot of other people that I know and that I've seen that have died from this. And I keep, I think I'll probably have some animosity and some anger when this is all over at something or somebody that this took some people's lives and took some people away from their loved ones for some pretty stupid reasons,
Yeah, it's just a wild time, like you said, a few moments ago about if someone would have told me in, 2019 in December or even in January that, this pandemic that was created in China that, was eating bats or some live animal or whatever it is, it would shut down the country and it would for months. And I would just been like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? And here we are living it. And here we are trying to find the right answers or the right course of action to proceed. And, how do you know what to do when you've never dealt with it before? So it's just an interesting, crazy time. I've talked to many musicians, many people in the industry about their creative process during this. Some people are very creative and they can find the well of creativity. Other people, because they're not doing something or they're basically in their house all day, it's been very hard to find, motivation or something that inspires them. You mentioned yourself, writing music, when you're feeling it. How has this been? Has it been a constant flow of creativity, or or has it been up and down? Has there been days where you couldn't find something, or then like 2 days later you're writing 3-4 songs?
It's been absolute. It's been absolute zero creativity for the first 2 months. I mean, I really should have. The way that I work, I could have finished 20 songs. I just could not. It completely zapped me, my creativity. I had my son home. He wasn't able to finish school. My wife's worried about keeping her business open. I kind of felt like I was living in a dream, and I couldn't. And really, to be honest, that's probably the first time it's ever happened in my life where I really just got knocked out of being creative. So I bought a bike, ride bicycles with my son, watched, a bunch of kung fu movies and westerns, and showed my 13-year-old son Sanford and Son, and made through about 70 episodes of that. And then one day, I finally, I'd sit down at the computer. I got a new program that I was working on in the studio that it's does drum stuff. And I built a couple beats in it, and it just kind of inspired me. And once the light switch is turned on with me, it's on. Like, I pretty much have to stop whatever I'm doing, and it's almost. I'm very aware of that spark, and sometimes I'll feel it, and I'll be very careful to get everything else pushed out of the way before I'll allow that to happen, because I know I don't want to be involved in something else and that spark come, because I know the songs are going to come. So everything that I've done creative over this thing has been in the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And I was dead up there until this point. And I think watching the news and listening to talking heads on both sides of the aisle, and just our media is so vile and so sick. And I think Washington in general, in my opinion, is the same way. I had that creative, when that spark opened up, I just opened up the floodgate for all the emotions of that. So I painted a picture with this EP that's pretty dark and mean, but it's kind of focused on a lot of our leaders and a lot of our media's hypocrisy, and just kind of
it's
being disgusted with that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Because I have a pre-existing condition. I have diabetes, so I wear a mask, and I see a lot of people wearing masks when they go out now, and I think that's great. I think that's a positive thing. People don't want to get other people sick, and they don't want to get themselves sick. It's hard to believe that wearing a mask has become a partisan issue. It's like that should not even be in the equation. You know what I mean? It should just be like, hey, this is what we need to do.
It's so stupid. Yeah. It's so stupid that going into this, we have conditioned ourselves and talked to ourselves this thing about not judging people's appearance or their lifestyle in the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm going to walk into a pharmacy a year ago and see somebody dressed up as a cartoon character, and I'm not going to judge them for that because our culture has said, hey, everybody's got a right to their own thing and don't judge. But yet all of a sudden, somebody wearing a mask for their own health or for someone else's safety, they're choosing to wear a mask so they don't give it to somebody else. All of a sudden, we're going to criticize that. It seems absolutely asinine to me. I don't get that at all. My wife was in the store the other day, and a guy was in there without a mask, and he was talking loudly and making some really stupid comments. And look, man, here's the problem. In the world right now, it's probably no different than ever. But this internet and social media and all this stuff has made everybody's opinion so boisterous and so loud. We have so many, there's so much stupidity being spewed out. It just doesn't help anything. But I'm totally with you, man. I don't see anything positive on either side of politics, and it's sad and sickening to me that there is nobody left that seems to have much common sense. That you have to, if you agree with point A, then you have to be this kind of person. If you agree with point B, you have to be this kind of person. Where the whole time I was growing up, the people that I idolized and looked up to and admired all were people that said, hey, man, I kind of feel like A, but I don't know. This B thing. Let's have a discussion about that. It's just being open-minded always seemed very American to me and seemed very, something to aspire to. And right now it seems like everybody wants to put everybody in a box and tell everybody how they are. I think it's disgusting.
Well, it's the act of listening. Nobody wants to listen to each other. Nobody wants to, hear, like you said, be open-minded, but hear a different point of view. It's always about what you believe, what you feel is right. Everyone else is wrong. On the other side is an idiot. On the other side is a jerk. And I don't know where or how and when that happened, but it's just crazy. I've mentioned this a few times on the podcast, and this seems so trivial now, but, we talk about if a liberal artist says something that's a liberal point of view, you got to boycott. If a conservative artist, says something conservative, you got to boycott. Why do you got to boycott anything just because someone has a different opinion? I don't understand that. I heard somebody did a podcast with, I was listening to it the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking to somebody that had played with Ted Nugent for a while. And I don't personally share any. I'm saying I have any agreements with Ted Nugent or any disagreements. I'm completely. I don't care what Ted Nugent does in his personal life. And this person said the same thing. They said, Ted Nugent was nice to me while I was in the band. He was a super nice guy, and I never gave a damn about anything other than his music that he made. I was in the band with him. I wasn't in his church, and I wasn't his cousin, and I wasn't in. And I think prior to the internet, I never knew what Paul Stanley thought about politics. I never knew what Jimmy Page thought about, the president or how he felt about Israel. It's like, I don't care about any of that. We should honor our artists for their art. And I don't really think there needs to be a discussion on anything else. And I totally agree with you. I'm not boycotting. Other than hurting animals or molesting children, there's not a whole lot that I don't care about somebody's politics or what they think about life differently than me if I admire their art. Just let me have the art.
It's the same as a plumber. If I hire a plumber and he comes over here and he fixes the pipes at my house and he's a nice guy when he comes in and he's respectful, I really don't care if he listens to rap or rock or country, and I don't care if he goes to the Mormon church or the Muslim church, synagogue, whatever. It's like,
no, I agree. I mean, I feel the same way about Ted Nugent, but I still love the song Stranglehold. I still love Cat Scratch Fever. I still love Great White Buffalo, and nothing's going to change on that. And I just don't know why that has to be that way. Why, if someone has a different viewpoint, you need to throw out all their records or throw out all their movies or stop buying their stuff. I don't get that. Why do you want to take the joy that something's given you for years just because someone doesn't agree with what you believe? That makes no sense. And I hope we start to go back to the way things were, where we listen to people, where we value other people's opinions. And I think the world's a better place if we do that.
I totally 100% agree with you. I just posted something the other day about, Roger Waters is raising Cain again about something with David Gilmour. And the thing that I admire about Gilmour is he doesn't get involved in the rhetoric or the arguments. He just does his music, and I'm trying to be more and more like that. And I admire people that can just turn down the noise and just make their art,
So the new music is on its way for the Cold Stares. You've got a lot of stuff happening from, I think July 1st is when you're going to start putting the new stuff out?
Well, we had originally, the first single was supposed to come out June 5th, but our distributor is about 2 weeks, about 10 days behind pushing music out just from staff and being down with COVID. So I think what I'm going to do is it was going to start June 5th. It's going to start 2 weeks after now. So I think that's the 19th. And that first weekend, I'll probably drop 2 new songs, and then we'll be on a schedule. We'll be right on the schedule to drop a new Cold Stare song every 2 weeks.
And then for how long? Is that like 10 songs? So 5 weeks, you'll be releasing 2 per week?
No. I originally thought 24 months, but I'm locking down to 12 months. So 24 new songs for sure. If the process works and the fans enjoy it and it helps our cause, I probably will continue doing that for the foreseeable future, just because we've built a bank in. I've got 14 songs now ready to go, so that gives us 28 weeks. That's almost half a year that I've already got. Well, so that frees me up for the next 6 months to go ahead and write some more. So probably I'm gonna see how this works. I've committed to the fans for the first 12 months, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. And then if that works, we may even release more music than that. We may throw an EP or something in there. That's the one thing that we don't, it's the one thing that we don't have a slow down button on, is writing and recording. So
it's interesting that you guys have the flexibility to change course in making music, or putting out music, I should say. A lot of bands that may be bigger or have a bigger stage don't have that flexibility. I imagine for you guys, that's a benefit for you and your fans.
Well, I think that bands that are self-releasing albums have that flexibility. Bands that are on record labels probably do not. We had 3 label offers, the 3 labels that we were talking to for this next record, and if we went with any of the labels, and including our last label, Anti-Fragile, they wouldn't want to do it like that. I can't foresee how a label deal would work when you're not releasing, and when you're just doing singles. That would be smart. That would be wise, especially if you're not touring right now. I don't know what the label would provide. I mean, if you really look at it, I think for a rock band that's proficient and that can play the instruments and go in and, record, you can make a record for $3,000 to $5,000 now. It used to be quite a bit more than that. So if you can come up with that capital to do that, then the other capital that you would be seeking from the record company would be PR and some other stuff, and a healthy budget for that, might be $10,000. So even that, if you can bust your butt and do some fundraisers or Kickstarter, or, you're smart about your income that's coming in. We put a lot of our income that comes in back in the band. Do that, then I don't see a point in signing with the label. And if you're not signed to the label, you can do whatever you want to do. And so that is one of the flexibility, is one of the aspects of us releasing our own music that we enjoy.
Plus, you don't have to deal with any of the politics too. You're making the music, you're making it how you want to make it, how you hear it in your ear and your mind, and you're able to put that right directly into the fans' hands, which is really an awesome process. I grew up years ago where that just didn't happen, and I think with social media and the internet, it gives a lot of artists like the Cold Stares to develop a following, but also have a different relationship with the fan that maybe you wouldn't have had you been around 10, 20 years ago, been on a label and not been able to do the things creatively that you do now.
Yeah, I think, it's obviously things are way different than 10 or 20 years ago. 10 or 20 years ago, we might would had more income coming in off the record, but the label would be taking a lot, but we definitely wouldn't have. I get messages and emails and stuff from people in Australia, Sweden, and Japan, and Italy. I get those messages every day that we wouldn't, we wouldn't have seen that kind of stuff from a record label or record deal 10 years ago. So the aspect of that in social media is, it's like what we're talking about. You just have to adjust. The landscape's differently. Landscape is different now, and so how do you navigate it versus then? And I will say, with the record deals that we've had, the only record deals that we have taken, the deal with Small Stone and the deal with Anti-Fragile, both of those labels and both of those guys, Scott Hamilton and Tom Serrig, both said, "Hey, do whatever you want to do." Neither one of those guys asked us to change anything on the album, asked us to, I had complete control over the artwork, over all the songs, and everything else. So the only deals that we've ever taken have been where we retain creative control. Early on, when we went through the deals and we were looking at Hollywood Records and Island and some of those things, yeah, they would have probably scoffed at half the, anything with a religious theme probably wouldn't have been on there, and then we probably would have been putting out one record a year, and everything would have been quite different. So I always recommend and would advise anybody that's an artist to, you want to. That's part of being an artist, is having creative control. If you're partnering with somebody that you really admire and you want their input on it, then that's one thing. But to have somebody at a record label that doesn't make art, tell you what you're going to have in your art, I think it's fairly ridiculous too. So,
what excites you about the new material? Last year, the Ways album was one of my favorite albums of the year. It's a phenomenal record. Now, as you have evolved into making new material, what excites you? What's different about this stuff than previous material?
The first 4 songs that'll come out over the next couple months are the EP songs, are the ones we did at the house, my house studio in Brian's. They're quite different from Ways. Guitar wise, I got an endorsement with Fender last year, and I've been using some different guitars and some different pedals. So this EP, the first 4 songs that will come out this year are fuzzy, and they're just they're a little bit different than they're also different because we didn't write them in the same room. You know, sometimes Brian and I'll jam through something and I'll write lyrics to it, or us writing, putting this together in two separate spots made it a little bit different. But after these 4 EP songs are out, then the songs from the Heavy Shoes record will start coming out, and those were recorded in Memphis, same studio we did the Ways record, and they're quite a bit more like Ways, a little bit more bluesy. They still have some different guitar aspects than what I'd done prior, but they probably there's 10 songs on that record, and they're probably fall a little bit more in line with where Ways was headed. This EP's kind of coming out of left field. I wrote the drum track in the basement, and I wrote all the stuff around it, and it was just a different process. That the output of that is a little bit different, and I wanted it fuzzy and mean, not necessarily what I would do live or what we would play live. I wasn't really considering that. I was just trying to be, that spark, like we talked about, it happened. I was just trying to be creative, and so they're a little different. And it's also the first time we've always produced our own music. So this is the first time that we've recorded it completely in our own studio. So I was a little apprehensive about, hoping that it sounded as good as Ways in a different way. But, we were really happy with the Ways record, and sonically we wanted to be on par with that.
When you're writing music, the lyrics to songs, and you're trying to tap into the vulnerability of that something happened to you, or writing about a life experience, and you got to reconnect with that experience, good or bad. And then you lay down the track, and you put the lyrics to it, you record it, you produce it, and you send it out. What type of feeling do you get when you wrote something personal and you had to reconnect with it all over again, to now you're waiting to see what the fans' connection is to it? Is that in your mind when you're doing something, or do you just write for yourself and hopefully people will enjoy it?
I just write for myself. I don't, and really, to be honest, there's very rarely do I go, okay, I'm writing this song, and this is about my grandfather, or this is about my ex-wife, or this is about, something traumatic that happened. I don't usually write from that narrative. Usually, it sounds crazy, but usually once that spark happens and I kind of open up, I don't really, it's almost like I'm unconscious. I just write what comes out. And then a lot of times looking back on it later, I go, oh, I know where that came from, or I can see where that strikes a nerve in me, There are a couple times that I'll write out, I'm thinking about something specifically, and I've written a song about it. I wrote a song about my wife on the last record. But even that, I wrote it out of love. I didn't write it out of, hey, I want to put a song on a record. I just had it. I had no intention of putting it on the record, and then just got on it. Our label liked it and wanted to put it on the record. But I worry that our fans will enjoy something sonically. I'm apprehensive sometimes that I want our fans to listen to it and go, hey man, the record really sounds great. I would be obliterated if I put something out and our fans came back and said, man, it just doesn't sound good. Outside of that, I never consider what the fans would think about the songwriting, or I never consider what they would think about the topic or anything else. It has to please me, and I think it has to be super honest. If you ask me to write a song about something that I don't connect to or feel strongly about, I don't think I'd write a good song about it. And sometimes I write about a feeling about something, like say take The River, it's an acoustic song about a guy and his lover getting killed. Obviously I don't have that story, That's not something I've lived through. But I came from a town where that kind of narrative could happen. And those characters in that song are in that town. And also, when I'm writing something like that, I'm thinking it's an homage. It's in the storyline of something that Johnny Cash and John Prine and the people that I admire, it would be in their realm. So it's not necessarily a song about something in my past, but it's a song that fits in somewhat in a box for me as far as the components that I'm trying to put in it. But I think if you're trying to write things that you think other people, because you think other people are going to like it, that's a pretty tough. Try to do that early on as far as getting a record deal, trying to write songs I thought the label would like. And the only kind of success I've ever had is writing things that are honest and true to me. So I'm sticking with that.
With the new music coming out, the strong record last year with Ways, was there a conscious effort to stretch yourself and try to do things differently on these recordings, on these albums? Or was it a fine tuning of what you guys have been successful at?
Yeah, I think every time we go to start a project, I mean, I don't want to record. I did the Ways record, and I was really proud that it had 3 different components. It had acoustic component, it had more of a bluesy tone, and it had a heavy tone. So I've done that. I don't really want to do that again. With the Heavy Shoes album, that would have been the follow-up to Ways. That album had a tone through the entire album. There was no ballads. There's no acoustic songs. It is a heavy blues record, start to finish, and that's what we aspired to do with it. And so, yeah, I'll look at it. I'm not going to use the same guitar tones I used on Any Way the Wind Blows or one of the other ones. Not that there's anything wrong with it. There's a few bands that do that. AC/DC, The Cult, there's been some bands that kind of keep that same narrative and go with it. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't return to that someday, but I want everything to be interesting and new when it comes out. So, yeah, the sonically, I want it to be a little bit different, and topic wise, I'm trying to touch on some things, that I haven't already. I don't want to write the same. Johnny Cash can do a lot of songs that are in the same. They feel like Johnny Cash songs, but they might not be the same topics, but they have the same feel. I think it's always what I'm trying to do as well.
When you think about things eventually opening back up, does Cold Stares have a plan to, attack, what's going to, when things do, when clubs open up, when people are allowed to start playing live and people are allowed to start going to see live music again? Have you thought about that? Or is it just kind of a wait and see still?
No, we're already looking forward to it. I mean, so the Bonamassa cruise has moved to August of 21. Louder Than Life has moved, it's a new date in 21. So everything that we had that canceled, we had a West Coast run that had some festivals and some other big shows. All that stuff canceled. We'll get all that stuff back on the books. We're not going anywhere, and I don't have any fear that things won't get back open. It may look different, it may be different, and whatever that is, then we'll embrace it. But we're ready to go. Actually, we booked a festival today for July. It's an outdoor festival in War Trace, about an hour outside of Nashville, and we were glad to do it. I'm sure with it being an outdoor festival that the people that are putting it on are going to have in mind some distancing things. And as fans, we have to be, same as if I'm going to see shows outdoors or wherever, we have to be cognizant that there are some people that could be at risk, and we want to take precaution and be safe about it. So, but yeah, we're ready to go. And one thing that I would say is that you have to look at I look at this thing as we should have been doing live stream concerts before this. We should have looked at what is the best plan for releases maybe a little bit more closely. We should have been engaging our fans with merchandise more. We've been doing a T-shirt a month the last couple months. The fans have been eating them up, and those things have paid the utilities on our homes. And we should have been looking at some things that we didn't have our eyes on prior to the shutdown. And so now when things open back up, in addition to the touring things, I think we need to continue on the things that we've learned during the shutdown. So doing both of those things, hopefully.
Yeah, out of something bad, something good always happens, right? Like with this whole pandemic, it causes you to reassess your approach and, audit what you guys are currently doing to, connect with the fans. And I imagine there's a lot of positivity that comes out of it. Like you just said, we should have been doing this a long time ago. We should have been doing, so it puts that focus on something that maybe you wouldn't have been able to really see those things had this not happened.
I think that's the only way. That's the only way to keep any sanity and look forward at it. You have to find the positivity in it, and it's true. I mean, those are things. We had 300 and something people on the Facebook live stream the other night. Look, we're learning this stuff too. We had some issues with sound and everything else. Those are things that we have to figure out and that we have to work out. I watch one of my favorite bands, Clutch. They did a live thing on YouTube and they had issues. And I think with us looking at it, I'm always trying to think about our fans, because we're not a band that had a record label that spent $1 million on PR when they first came out and got a bunch of fans. The fans that we have, we've gradually won. And so I am always thinking about what could we give the fans? What could we do for the fans to help grow that relationship, to help grow more fans? And I think all these things. I mean, I should have thought about live stream. I get on and do Instagram Live every now and then, and people, it is very odd to me that someone would post something on Instagram and I would reply and thank them. And I get somebody that messages me and says, "Hey man, it really meant a lot to me that you replied." I'm like, man, if as long as I have time in the day from now until the day that I'm off this rock, I would always do my best to respond and take time to anybody that is supporting the thing that I work so hard at. It's like that seems I can't imagine an artist that wouldn't be. Now, I'm sure that everybody gets somebody that's a little overzealous every now and then. We have those people too. They have the same they have the same end goal. They're trying to express that what you're doing meant something to them. So I think that's I don't know. I think that's a good recipe for any band, is be cognizant of your fans and put them first. And we're trying to always thinking about trying to do that, whether it's live streams or whatever going forward.
Yeah, but it's also the larger issue too, right? I mean, music now gives you the ability to, because of social media, connect with your fans more. And, fans have the ability to, so that's all a great thing. That's all, I think that's, a wonderful aspect of how music is now. Whereas, when I was growing up, I couldn't imagine connecting with an artist that I liked and having them communicate with me and having a back and forth on social media. I couldn't imagine that. And there was always a wall there that doesn't really exist now.
It's still crazy to me. I have conversations with Joe Bonamassa every now and then. I have conversations with David Grissom. I have conversations with people that I idolized because of where we're at, and it's unreal. I haven't said that. I think whenever I was a kid, the guys that I really idolized, I almost didn't want to know too much about them, or I don't know how I would have been. I don't think there's any nervousness now. I can't imagine meeting somebody because social media and everything else. I feel like I know everybody anyway. You feel like there's not that many bands that kind of hold it close to their chest that you don't know. There's much mystery left, but I probably would still be like that. And put me in a room with Eric Clapton, I probably would, But in general, we're all kind of out there now. You can see it all. John Mayer, John Mayer's on there being personal on Instagram, is as personal can get for a long time. Sometimes I don't, sometimes, you might not want to be that close to your artist. You want to revere them from a distance, and that way you can keep them on a pedestal. I don't know.
The new music is going to be coming out in June. I've had the pleasure to listen to one of the tracks that you sent me. It's absolutely phenomenal. Your fans are going to love it. The song is The Wicked and the Cursed. It's got a great vibe to it. It's got a great sound to it, and looking forward to more stuff. Is that the first single that you guys are going to be releasing?
Yeah, that's the first one. That's the first one out, and I'm thinking of all of them a little bit differently than singles or albums. We're just going to start. Here's the thing: if it's not good enough to come out as a single, I don't think we should put it out. So, and that doesn't mean that we think it's catchy enough to be a single or anything else. We just want them all to be that strong. But that's the first one coming out. And it's the first one that we kind of finished, and that's the only reason there. It's not that I have a preference for it. I particularly like that one because of the guitar stuff on it. But they're all, I do like them. I like all these. All four of the new EP things were a nice break and departure.
Well, looking forward to the new music. Like I said, I heard the first track. I was blown away by it. Couldn't stop listening to it when you sent it to me. Looking forward to more stuff. Thanks again, Chris, for being on the podcast. Another great conversation. Always enjoy and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me again. I really appreciate it.
Once again, everybody, that's Chris Tapp from The Cold Stairs. I'm Jay Scott. This is the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Stay strong, stay healthy. We'll chat again soon. Thank you.